Flight attendants of Reddit, have you ever caught passengers joining the Mile High Club? What happened? Not a flight attendant, but I do have a relevant story. Back when my wife and I were heading out on our honeymoon, we were doing the typical wait in the airport for the flight. It was a late night flight on a small plane out of a regional airport, so there was only going to be 4 of us on the plane total. My wife was wearing her veil, so it was pretty obvious we were on a honeymoon. As we were headed out to board, the captain was in the cabin and he said hey and then asked if we had gotten a limo for the wedding. We told him no and then he replied, "Well, this will be your limo. The other 2 people missed the flight, so it's just the 2 of you." We headed to the exit row seats since they were open, and as the flight attendant was doing a special pre-flight cabin service for us and she asked if we wanted any drinks on the house from the captain. We both ordered drinks, and when she brought them back she also brought a few extra blankets and said the captain said if you make a mess you gotta clean it up. She handed us the drinks and blankets and headed to her seat. They turned off all the cabin lights. The flight attendant left a reading light on, and we started on our way. We're fricked, on a plane, and not crammed into a bathroom. Best flight ever. I may not be the captain of the Mile High Club, but I like to think of myself as a first class flyer. Sir, that's the Air Force One of the Mile High Club. My buddy had an airplane fetish and would often board planes and try and seduce the women. To this day he is a virgin. Not a flight attendant, but I was on a flight with some Mile High Club buttholes. 15-year-old me was on a transatlantic flight when I felt the telltale dampness indicating that my period had just started. The line for the bathroom was about 10 passengers deep, but there were 2 stalls across from each other. After a few minutes someone left the first stall. A few minutes later, the first stall door opened again. After about 15 minutes, I realized that no one had come out of the second stall. After 25 goddamned minutes, a couple came out. She saw the line stretching the length of the cabin and turned bright red and started giggling. He looked super proud of himself and chuckled. The line finally started moving at a reasonable pace. Just as I reached the front, the seatbelt sign came on and the steward came over the PA system announcing upcoming turbulence and asking all passengers to return to their seats and fasten their seat belts. I ignored it and slipped into the stall as soon as the last passenger came out. A flight attendant, who had been absent during the earlier 30-minute romp, suddenly started banging on the door and ordering me to return to my seat. Meanwhile, I got my first lesson in heavy turbulence tampon insertion while being yelled at by a flight attendant. I'm not a flight attendant, but I was caught one time when I was 16 on a flight to Seoul trying to join the solo aviator division. My mom is a flight attendant. Maybe once or twice a year she'll see people try it, but they usually can't fit 2 people comfortably in a lav and they'll abandon it. She usually doesn't say anything unless they're hogging a loaf because they're too embarrassed to come out. In her 40 years in the skies, it's never really been a thing. Sorry. I was going to say that my 6'7" 320 lb self can barely fit in the bathrooms on the planes. I can't imagine 2 people try to fit unless they're little people. I'm the size of 2 people stacked on top of each other in a trench coat. That was kind of my point. No, but I noticed a couple, man-woman, getting very familiar with their hands under a blanket. I left them alone though because the plane was almost empty and it was past midnight. Most everyone else was asleep, and there were no kids on the plane. Almost related. Also let 2 girls get so drunk they started making out with each other during landing. I am not good at judging alcohol and they apparently had already started drinking before they got on the plane. Whoops. I love your attitude. Flight's crew don't frick around with that. If you want to join the Mile High Club, rent your own jet. You won't join with commercial flights. There is a chartered flight business in Queensland, Australia that specifically does Mile High Club flights. I was on an intercontinental flight from the US to Spain when I was 15. A girl about the same age range and I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. There were 4 for our section and since we were in rows near each other we used the ones adjacent to each other. I was told to open up 30 seconds into my poop to make sure nothing was going on. Don't believe everyone who has said they joined the club. Anytime I've been in a flight I've always been checked up on in the bathroom when taking more than a minute. Hey, at least you joined the Poopy Mile Club. Male flight attendant here. Does joining the club with your fellow flight attendant count? God damn it, story. Otherwise I'm going to have to drop out of my current career path and become a flight attendant so I can find out for myself. A friend of mine is chief pilot for a small pleasure flight company that offers stunt flights in biplanes etc. One of the things they do take people up wing walking. And yes, they have had someone ask if they could take a friend up for a session. Wing fricking. I once bagged Eartha Kitt in an airplane bathroom. Did it on my honeymoon. It was an international flight and it was at night. I don't think anyone noticed. Honestly, it was cramped and we both had the mindset of let's just get this done more than anything else. Still awesome though. Let's just get this done. Still awesome though. Yep, no matter what the situation. Still awesome. I'm not a flight attendant, but I did freak a few times when I lived in Denver. Girl I was somewhat seeing and I went to New York City. We split a room with 2 other friends. We're all sitting around the Sunday morning and shooting the crap and this topic comes up. We were flying on a small 70-passenger plane and the washroom was at the front of the plane, making it impossible to pull off. Or, so we thought. It was mutually agreed that the only way this could be pulled off was if you were in the very last row and the woman sat on the man and there weren't people in the seats surrounding. Even then, it wouldn't be able to go on for any more than a minute or 2 without the risk of getting caught. We all laugh and go on with the day. The next day we get to the airport a bit early and they ask if we want to be bumped up to the next flight. Sure. And, off we go. We get on the plane and wouldn't you know it, we're in the very last row. Needless to say we just look at one another as we realize this and begin laughing like school kids. As we are about to push back there's one person in the seat 1 row in front of us across the aisle, but otherwise nobody. Holy crap. The flight is about 1:15 am, so time is super limited. We only have one chance at best. The guy close to us nods off in a nap we think and drink service is starting at the front of the plane. This is our chance. Are we going to make this happen frick? Nerves, what if we get caught? This isn't quite as easy as we planned. As we're about to get down to business we realize if anyone was to turn around, it'd be super obvious and we veto the idea. However, this didn't stop other activities that will remain to your imagination. Almost had it. Big close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Folks. Horseshoes, hand grenades, skunks and thermonuclear war. I fly over 100k to Asia a year. I get bored on 14 HR flights and flirt with flight attendants. No, they don't mile high me or anyone, since they don't want to get fired and I'm happily married, but they do share secrets about what they've seen. 20 years ago was rare for couples try to bag Mile High Club. Now everyone watches internet P gets crazy ideas plus even some R-rated movies have ref to Mile High Club activity. So now flight attendants told me on approx 5% or 10% of long haul, 12 plus HRS flights at least one couple is seen entering exiting bathroom together. Flights to certain destinations have more couples so see more action. Other destinations are more people flying solo on business so less mile high action seen by flight attendants. And majority of time flight attendants do not interrupt mile high session if done discreetly in lav while most passengers sleeping because cabin lights dimmed, and assuming no line forms for bathrooms. Mile High Club is pretty easy to pull off under those conditions because on 12 plus HR overnight flights, there are time periods when nobody is watching those back lavs. Also when I was young, like 20, I thought all women were all sugar and spice everything nice and innocent and never got real wild steamy ideas in their head. Then I got older less innocent, and realized a lot of women get moods to do very wild crazy sexy things, and just want a man W guts to ask them for that, and they say yes. My point is there's a hidden wild side to life, and within people, and when you know how to look, then you see it everywhere. You ever watch the movie Blue Velvet? We had them escorted off the plane by the police once we landed. If this is real I think some people wouldn't mind hearing considering that's the whole point. As a passenger who's accomplished it, my GF and I caught a Sunday night red eye with a handful of passengers and didn't see an attendant the whole time. Probably only 8 passengers on the plane so there was a lot of distance between us and everyone else. Easier than I thought it'd be. I was also really drunk so someone might have noticed and I just didn't. Regional flight attendant here. My plane's 8 too small for anything to happen. It's too small to even get a good wank in. I dated a girl years ago who worked for Mesa Airlines, which is a charter partner of US Airways here in AZ. She said it's happened twice. Once when she and another girl were working, a couple came up to them and discreetly asked if they could join the club, and my ex and the other FA I guess laughed a bit and said go ahead. She said she heard the dude's belt buckle hitting the wall constantly. Another incident was where two people in the same row decided to hook up in the row. She said they both were rather gross looking. The crew caught them in the act but not sure what happened. Another time a guy in a row alone whipped out his dong and told my ex he thought she was real pretty. Classy guy. I can't remember where I was going, but I was flying out of Dulles in the 90s. A white red-headed transgender, I'm guessing, woman was saying a teary goodbye to a black guy. It sounded like they had met via the internet and she had come in to see him. Looked like they were really into each other. On the flight, the redhead, who was passable and pretty, was sitting about 2 rows in front of me. Her seatmate was a black guy she hadn't met prior to the flight. At some point during the flight I see her get up and go to the bathroom, then about 30 seconds later her seatmate goes to the same bathroom. About 15 minutes later they come back at same time with her looking flushed. I only mentioned the race of the guys because it seemed like that was her thing after watching her cry saying goodbye to her DC romantic interest, then within an hour screwing around with a stranger. My wife, girlfriend at the time, and I did it in the airplane bathroom. More like a 5-second okay, this counts as mile high. Right then people started knocking. Flight attendant knew what was going on but he was a bro, so we just fist pumped and I returned to my seat to watch the rest of Jumanji. I'm the first to post here that's actually a flight attendant, and no, just some heavy petting under a blanket. Give them the side eye and they usually knock it off. Sorry. We kicked them off the plane so we could depart Denver International. You don't want to do this after 9/11, you can get arrested, have the plane diverted and end up in the news. God dang, terrorists ruined a good thing. Flight attendant for a domestic airline here. I've seen it exactly one time. Most people can keep their dong in their shorts for a 3-hour flight. I was staffing a flight from Detroit Metro to featuring Lauderdale. You can already assume something crazy will happen since we have Florida residents on the plane, and we had just begun the in-flight service. I guess these two figured we'd be too busy handing out peanuts to check up on the latrine, so they slipped in. In a way, they were right. We didn't see a couple entering while we worked the aisles. They must have gone at it for at least 15 minutes, as I distinctly remember starting the service 10 minutes to 4 PM and catching them 5 after. I must say, it'd be pretty tough to get one off quick under that pressure. They had left the door unlocked stupid and I decided to take the opportunity to scare the living crap out of them. I quietly turned the latch a little so the door could come open, and I peeked in just a little so the door wouldn't look like it was being opened. I could see they were going at it in doggy, with the woman leaned over the toilet seat and the man's pants all the way down on his ankles. I braced myself and I yanked the door as loudly as possible and screamed, "If you suckers don't put a goddamn serious tag on your crap, this will happen to every POST," and I shoved my foot straight up the man's butthole. I can say, it was an odd experience. The whole flight clapped for me. They've been banned from our airline. If I remember correctly, I do miss them from time to time. Not a flight attendant but joined the Mile High Club, along with another couple, after a flight delay with our connecting flight. The last leg had maybe 20 passengers, 2 of which were another couple we befriended at the airport bar. We asked this very question to our flight attendant, to which he replied, "I don't see anything. I don't hear anything." Took that as our cue to head to the lavatory, got back to our seats and gave a word of advice to our newfound traveling companions: get your leg up and bend over. Flight attendant then brought us over 2 goodie bags full of airline swag, including a certificate that says "Airline welcomes you to the Mile High Club," dated and everything. One of our proudest moments. Things that never happened. This story. I was an attendant on a red-eye flight from Tokyo to Tula. Those flights are almost always dead and boring because everyone's usually asleep. Well, about halfway through the flight I noticed 2 women about mid-20s get up and go to the same lavatory together. I didn't think nothing of it at first, but after a while I started to wonder. So like 30 minutes go by and these girls are still in the dang lavatory. So I walk up to the door, knock and ask if everything is okay, and I don't hear anything back. So I start getting worried. I try to open the door, but it's locked, so I go and get the key. When I unlock the door, I can't believe what I'm seeing before my eyes. The two women were 69ing. You may ask, how in an airplane lavatory that's small as heck? Well, just sit back and listen, my friend. One woman was sitting on the toilet like you do when you're taking a crap, and the other woman upside down with her head basically in the toilet. The one woman sitting on the toilet looked up and gasped and farted or crap, I don't know which, probably both. The upside down girl started screaming, "YTF did you crap, you nasty bee?" At this point I don't know what to fricking do. I'm at a loss for words and can't believe this crap. All of a sudden the plane starts shaking hard because what I thought was turbulence. It wasn't turbulence, it was much worse. The woman sitting on the toilet lets go of the upside down woman during this, and the woman falls, knocking me out of the lavatory. I get back up and see crap all in the hair and forehead of this naked chick, and I'm grossed out as heck. I look back towards the other woman and she's gone. Turns out it wasn't a woman at all. It was a dang Loch Ness monster asking me for tree fiddy. I read about 2 sentences and knew. Flight attendant here. No. I achieved the Solo Aviators Club 4 times on a transatlantic flight for the sole purpose of pain relief. You see, I drank copious alcohol the night before my flight, and as I blearily stumbled around in the German airport, I was aghast that they don't sell Advil or aspirin in airports. Along with my massive hangover, I had a newly discovered air pocket in my tooth that would cause immense pain when the airplane would rise or dive. So I flogged the one-eye monster just for some goddamn pain relief. Dat dopamine rush. Not sure if it counts, but I totally fingered the random girl that sat next to me on a flight once. Ask for a few blankets and you're good to go. Dated a stewardess for a while, and she told me that on transatlantic night crossings it's pretty common, and for the most part they turn a blind eye unless someone complains. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.